I don't know what Dungeons and Dragons. Like I don't. It's like a game, but like you imagine you're like in the game, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's just it's just a collaborative storytelling with some characters.
This is a clip from Real Ones with Jon Bernthal. It is a podcast he runs. I love him as an actor and most of the things he's been in. He is interviewing Deborah Ann Woll, who, if you're not familiar, was in True Blood and Daredevil, to name probably some of the most prominent roles. But she also is a prominent GM, professional GM, and has some partnerships with Wizards of the Coast, not my favorite company, or TTRPG, but this interview really gets to the essence of what tabletop role-playing games are. It's a really good, if someone's curious and you want to just give them a quick example of what a very player-centric game kind of might look like. So we're going to watch this together if you haven't seen it and kind of give you some of my takeaways.
And you tell the story?
Yeah, I'm a dungeon master. So generally I've written an arc and created a world, and then players explore it. And I make calls as to like how difficult it is to climb a wall or fight a monster or that kind of thing.
And so if you say this is a real difficult monster to fight, then you've got to come up with a different way of fighting it?
Yeah, or, either it can just be like how hard you hit it and how long the thing goes, but it might be how do you negotiate your way out of it? If you can't actually kill a dragon, but it's going to eat you, how do you tell it not to?
That is a fantastic take. Not every combat encounter has to be combat. What are some other creative ways to solve the problem? What other interesting creative things can you utilize? What is your environment like? What are the other personalities involved? What are the motivations of the bad guy? Can you tie into that to prevent the combat or get what you need out of this without just coming to blows?
So there are other kind of checks that you can do, persuasions and deceptions and intimidations. And
then you decide whether you beat the dragon, the person beat the dragon.
Yeah, there are stats. There's a lot of math involved that can make that happen. But like,
God damn.
You want to play D&D?
I mean, I'll try. I mean, what do you think I'd be able to do it?
Literally right now.
Sure.
All right.
I love the look of just amazement in his face, also that he's willing to try, and I appreciate that she can just kind of do this on the fly. Not every GM is going to be able to just drop into a basic encounter, but I think this is a really good, simple way to understand the improving of what an encounter might look like and what being a GM is like.
So let's see, you've got a bow strapped to your back. A sword and a dagger at your hilt, right? So you're walking through the woods. It's dark. It's at night. Almost no moonlight is coming through. You hear a crack off in the distance. Something large stepped on a branch. What would you do?
First thing, how far away is the crack?
Give me a perception check. So then you roll dice and we'd see how perceptive you are. Let's say you roll a 13. Okay. And you're pretty perceptive. So you have a +3 to that. That's 16. So I know, okay, 16, that's pretty perceptive. You think it's about 20 feet away.
Okay. It's about 20 feet away. I think I take out my bow first.
So you take a bow, you're readied, you're aimed, you're looking.
Right at where the spot's coming,
Okay. Slowly creeping towards you, suddenly into view, a little bit of eye shine in the darkness. You see an owl bear. This is
wonderful, just explanation of what's going on. Anyone can picture what's happening in that scenario. I love you don't get to quite know how far away it is. Roll a perception check, get more information, get the right direction. I also like that she kind of improvised the math numbers to give him an idea of what that would look like, and like, oh, you're pretty good at this, so you're getting a +3, it equals this. Really good, just kind of easy explanation of what's going on. Just because they're brand new, I may not have just said, you see an owlbear. I think I might have explained a creature a little more in depth, but on the fly, that's just nitpicky.
It's a 10, 15-foot tall monster. It looks like an owl, but it has the body of a bear. It opens its beak and squawks at you.
I love from that explanation this just look of what the is going on. Like trying to imagine this creature if you don't have a real fantasy background to know what an owlbear is just by the name of the creature. I just love how he is in his imagination right now with that.
What do you do?
Have I ever met an owlbear before? Like, are owlbears
We could do it in a history check. So this is D&D. You're playing D&D.
I mean a history check.
So a history check would be like, in your past, in your history, have you experienced
Okay, so how do I check?
before?
Yeah, let's
so you
check
would roll
that.
a dice. Let's say you have a low history. You roll a 13, but you have a -3. That's a 10. So no, you've never met an owlbear in your life. You have
Ouch, -3. No intelligence. That's rough, man.
no idea whether it's threatening or not, but it is squawking at you.
I'd be like, yo, are you my friend or are you my foe?
Fantastic. You speak to it.
Yeah, I try.
Give me an animal handling check. So you'd roll another one. So this is what we kind of see based on your character sheet that you've created, you're going to be good and bad at different things.
Who I create the sheet?
You could, or I could, or you could get a pre-made sheet,
Why
that
don't
kind
you
of
just
thing.
make your sheet that you're great at everything?
Because, you know, if you're a wizard who's in school studying books to learn magic, you're probably not spending that much time in the gym. Versus if you're, you know, a knight who goes out and slays dragons, you know, maybe you're socially awkward and don't know how to talk to people. So your
So
charisma
is it within
status.
your interest to like not be great at everything?
You want flaws. Like one of my favorite characters, my friend Tommy played.
So I appreciate this, and I also like flaws in my characters. One of my favorite characters I ever played, and I hate magic users traditionally in Pathfinder because first edition I didn't like how magic worked. I found it boring, didn't enjoy it. I finally played an Arcanist. I made him to have some drawbacks with the trait takes, which is, I wish something in second edition was like this, where you could have the small perks from traits, but you could also have the flaws in that and have some mechanical drawbacks. All this to say, condescending, arrogant, did everything with magic, so also had super low strength, and I had to like substitute everything that was physical activity with a magic spell, so a lot of my spell list was just basic utility combined with kind of being an arrogant prick, and watching him have to interact with a party and how their opinions and like spending a lot of time with people because he was kind of bouncing around between places, so he never got a lot of time with close friends. So actually seeing people that he was stuck with day in and day out and how they dealt with his poor attitude and how that slowly changed him was one of my favorite characters to play. So I agree with her, you want to have flaws. However, I think this could have been explained better in that you only have so many points to spend, so you have to decide where you want to lean in. Do you want to be kind of good at everything? Do you want to be really good at something? So when you're building your character, you have these options and decisions to make.
Played Viros. He was a prince. And the idea was that he was very, you know, he'd been kind of pampered his whole life and everyone always laughed at all his jokes and said that he was wonderful and handsome. But he's actually not that funny and he's not that handsome. He just has been sheltered. So when he got out in the world and started investigating, he thinks that he's this charming, suave individual, but his stats, his like literal charisma stats are very low. So he would fail constantly. And part of his story throughout the campaign was him learning that he wasn't as charming as he thought he was.
That is a wonderful arc at the table. I would love to just to watch that play out. That would be great.
So flaws are great. Flaws make good stories.
But is the goal to win?
No.
What's
There
the
is
goal?
no goal is to tell a great story.
Tell a great story.
And there might be arcs of like one big bad is like hurting innocent people and there are monsters to fight. So you're motivated to be a hero. And that's what I love about D&D is practicing being a hero. It's practicing protecting the innocent and stopping the bad guy and standing up for your fellow players.
Awesome point. We don't have enough heroicness, I think, in our society. We kind of let that fall by a wayside. So I think D&D or any tabletop role-playing game is a great avenue to explore that within ourselves. But also, you know, sometimes playing a bad guy campaign can be real enlightening as well. I had one game where I super leaned into a very evil character, and it was a very interesting place to play in. I don't think I could do it on the regular, but it is also one of my favorite characters. Was my evil swashbuckler with a revenge arc. An interesting side note on that, I've recently found out that every player individually went to the game master who was playing a GM NPC and warned them that my character, if like something went awry, to watch out because I was gunning for that guy and I just needed one excuse. Like none of the players coordinated with each other, but each of them individually went to this NPC and was like, hey, you should watch out for him. So I got a kick out of that, just learning about that recently.
It's the greatest game ever created. And it's just collaborative storytelling. You just sit at a table. It's as close as you can get to when you were 7 on the play yard, just like making up games and stories. And I love it. And I will do it until I die.
Yeah, dude.
And it saved me through pandemic. It saved me through strikes. You know, like I always had this thing to turn to for creativity and finances, frankly.
How finances?
People pay me to run games for them and pay me to write campaigns and do things like that.
Yo.
Yeah. It's like a whole side career now.
Super cool. She's been able to do that, living the dream, right? Taking your passion and making into something. Kind of why I have this channel. I don't really have any expectations of making a ton of money doing this, but I love talking about Pathfinder, role-playing games, trying to put my homebrew content out there just for more people to appreciate the world. And yeah, so definitely understand where that's coming from. I can't say, it saved me from the pandemic or anything, but definitely as a young kid in middle school, TTRPGs definitely helped me through, just growing up and figuring out who I was and some tough times as a kid. So I think these games fill a space for a lot of us, and it's cool to hear someone speaking that in a venue like this, which isn't to other gamers, to people who may not understand, and to give them a little bit more appreciation of what these games are.
But it's cool. And like I said, it's that one weird space where we're all nerdy. So I don't.
You do it like free of, there's no nerves or insecurity.
Well, there's nerves and insecurity, but I don't have to worry about not being cool. Whereas like every time I'm on a Daredevil set, I'm a little worried that I'm not cool.
Yeah.
I'm not cool enough for everybody.
It's funny, man. And again, we were talking about this and joking about it earlier, but
Yeah.
it's like when you say like True Blood being cool and stuff, like I feel the exact. I felt like I never could fit in.
Yeah.
Because I was always like this athlete and this boxer guy who was like trying to be an actor, and like I always felt like not cool enough. Like I could never like really like speak that language. And I remember when we were when Walking Dead like first happened, True Blood was like, I remember we were at like one of those awards that like one of those like I don't know, like Saturn Awards or something like that. And I remember like, Walking Dead hadn't come out yet, but me and Sarah were there and we had to announce something, and they showed like it was like the True Blood cast, and like it was like close-ups of their face that and like me and Sarah walked out, and I remember who it was, but like one of the main women on that cast, and she was like, Renee, like that, like kind of like zombie show, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's her.
I think this speaks to a lot of folks, and I think this is cool to see celebrities and these people having all these same anxieties and things that all humans go through. One reason I like Jon, he is a pretty serious actor who comes from what you would not expect a very actor background. So that's one reason I actually really appreciate him in a lot of his roles. So that was just kind of a cool insight to see from these folks.
Hollywood is a weird space where either you were always cool or you were like your story where you're like, I was a nerd, or I was a jock who didn't really do this stuff, but fell in love with it and then felt like an imposter because I didn't come from the weird artsy clique. Mm-hmm. Or you're me, who was always the weird artsy kid who then goes into Hollywood and everyone's cool and wants to party. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird space where.
Yeah, if the party's not going through the forest, like, what do you mean party?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't, at those industry parties, I always end up in the kitchen doing dishes with the caterers because
really?
I've done that several times. Like one of the Netflix parties, like at Ted Sarandis' house.
You went into the kitchen, started doing dishes?
I did dishes in the kitchen because I was so nervous. I didn't know who to talk to or how to be there. So I went in to use the bathroom or something like that. And I don't know. I just was like, oh, let me get that. I don't know. My brain needed something to do.
Yeah.
I think that's also why games and stuff help me, because it's like an activity. And I can get to know people better if it's not just talking. If it's like, oh, we're playing a game and I'm learning who you are.
Yeah.
Board games in general, not just TTRPGs, it's amazing what you can learn and find out about people just interacting through that medium. It's a super good way to just kind of create a comfortable environment. So in my medieval reenactment world, I always try to have chess and some medieval games set up so people can sit over a board, enjoy some drink, play a game, and get to know each other through that way. So they're not just, surrounded in this strange environment, people in strange clothing, and not knowing what to do, there's somewhere you can sit down and do the thing. So I thought that was a pretty cool takeaway also.
So there's something about like, oh, I need to do something like helpful for the world right now instead of just standing at some fancy house pretending that I am fancy and belong.
Yeah. I don't know. Those things are getting easier. I mean, like I avoid them because I just want to be with my kids if I have time, but they're getting easier because I feel like I know people. Like I get to see old friends, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know very many people.
Yeah.
That's another downside of being introverted in this industry.
Yeah.
I don't tend to hold on to those relationships very, very well. It's true.
So there you go, just a snippet from the Deborah Ann Woll interview on Real Ones. Check it out if you're interested in hearing more. They seem to get into a lot of pretty deep topics, you know, just for that little 8-minute snippet to see a little bit about D&D and how she relates it to other parts of her life. I think it speaks to a lot of us in the gaming world. If you have someone that is interested in gaming, this is also just a great little introductory to what TTRPGs look like, what even maybe some tips for being a GM can be gleaned from in that, right? Describing the scenario, setting them up, understanding just a real basic scene and how to improv that could be really good for anyone who's thinking about jumping in. It doesn't have to be really elaborate. You can do very simple storylines of the hunter in the woods that it comes across a monster, and then the monster's maybe not a monster, and you just build the story from there and tell a collaborative story together. So there you go. Let me know what you think of this interview, and if you saw it first or if this is your first time. Let me know if you know anything about Deborah Ann Woll and some of the things she's put together. I don't really venture into the D&D space much since 2nd edition, so if you're a big fan of hers, I'd love to hear about it. And we'll see you guys next time on 20-Sided Adventures. Have a